journey, welcome back. And for those of you that support me over on Patreon, thank you so very much for your support. Your subscriptions are greatly appreciated. It is early, guys. I've been up since like 2:30 this morning. I don't know what's going on. I woke up in the middle of the night, so I may not have a live audience this morning for this broadcast, but that's completely fine. I hope that you guys aren't getting notified that I've gone live super early, but I'm just trying to be productive and get some of this stuff knocked out. So since I'm sitting here awake, I might as well continue on with the air signs. So this is a broad spectrum reading for January of 2021 for the sign of Aquarius. If you have a sun, moon, or rising in the sign of Aquarius, you may want to watch this video. If you have heavily placed planets in Aquarius, like 3 or more, I would consider that heavily placed. You may want to watch this video. It might give you insight into what's going on for you for the month of January for the sign of Aquarius, right? But it is a broad spectrum reading intended to reach a lot of people. Therefore, you have to figure out sort of where it best fits in your life. If it does fit, great. Utilize whatever you need out of it that helps you and supports you. If it doesn't fit, don't worry. It doesn't mean anything's wrong or broken. It just might mean that you're working on something different at this time. It could be, the placement of where your planets are in what houses, all of that sort of stuff. If you use any of the information in any of my videos to make decisions in your day-to-day life, please know that those decisions are your responsibility. Always take your own intelligence and intuition first and foremost and utilize that. And never take anything that I say over that as the suggestions or advice of a professional in their field, like a doctor, a lawyer, or like, say, a therapist. Always listen to them first and foremost into your own self. And beyond that, the rest is sort of self-explanatory. We'll get into this. The cards that I'm using as the signifier for the month is from the Wisdom of Avalon. Again, I felt like this would be a good deck for the air signs because in the title it says wisdom, and you guys being an air sign and in the realm of intellect, I thought perfect. This will work well for you guys. So let's see. Hopefully it will speak to you. So what do we need to know for January of 2021 for the Aquarians? Oh, interesting. So we've got the fear card, number 48. 48 would come down to a 12, which would come down to numerologically would boil down to a 3. To me, 3s are always the mind, body, and the spirit. I feel like this looks like a little bit of a doorway moving through fear. The interesting thing is that they've chosen nature and a lot of greenery to indicate fear. To me, I associate green and nature with healing and growth. But I do also believe that we can heal and grow through dealing with our fears or facing our fears. There could be things that come up this month for the Aquarians that might challenge you guys or make you have to look at things that you've otherwise attempted to avoid or have felt that you've needed to avoid. But I feel like at this point in time, with that 48 boiling down to a 3, it's about the alignment of bringing ourselves to a more whole place. A place where our mind, body, and spirit are more in kind of balance and connection with one another. Therefore, we may have to address some things that hold us back that we might be fearful of or that are, limiting us in some way, shape, or form. It could be our own self-doubt. It could be our own anxieties, those sort of things. Ultimately, I feel like there's a release happening in this card. This is the doorway that we see here to me. Let me just sort of tilt this way. Me. There's sort of a doorway that I feel like we're peering through. Maybe we're a little bit afraid to walk forward in our lives, take responsibility for something, whatever that might be for the Aquarians. And each one of you, it may be something different. Challenge yourself, because I feel like there's this green, this forest here depicted to me and the flowing water over the rocks that we see down here. There's movement, there's opportunity, there's sort of new growth and kind of like an abundance on the other side of this, whatever we might be wrestling with in the month of January. So don't let that stop you is kind of the message that I'm getting. If you find yourself struggling, if you find yourself being challenged by things that, say you didn't want to deal with or you wanted to put on the back burner or you've been maybe you know, kind of successfully avoiding through 2020. January is the month to kind of face it down. And I think that that will work in your favor, Aquarius. So let's see what's going on in the tarot cards for you guys. And again, this is broad spectrum. So anything I say, take what you need and leave the rest. If you don't want a month where you're facing your fears, you can certainly choose to not do so. But I think the beautiful green of this card and the doorway peering through, to me, this feels like an opportunity for us to face something we've otherwise chosen to avoid. And in doing so, we free ourselves up for new perspectives, maybe even a new lease on life. All right, let's see what's going on here. All right, so this first card is what I call the where you're centered at, the center card, right? It's the U card. Tells me a bit about sort of where the Aquarians will be centered at most of the time throughout the month. You won't be in this at all times, but it'll be your dominant sort of stance during the month of January. It gives me insight into not only where you're resonating at or where you're kind of centered at, but also can give me insight into what you could potentially be creating for the future. So let's see. All right, so we have the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords. So to me, sometimes this can be a little bit impetuous. Knights are always doing things for the right reasons, and my Aquarians are probably that makes sense to me. I do like that this is an air elements card, so that is in line with your guys' own energy. It's definitely your home element. So it being a swords card, I love that. The Knight sometimes can get a little bit ahead of himself, a little bit excited, wants to rush into battle a little bit early. We might be, maybe we're taking on some of these fears or anxieties, self-doubts and things like that. That might be something that we might be challenging ourselves or pushing ourselves a little bit too hard with too. There could be potential for maybe relaxing a little bit and allowing ourselves a little bit of grace. When I look at this cat on the back of this owl, it sort of feels like he's like, onward ho, like let's fly in there and tackle this and get it done with. But I want to say this is now really the time. Yes, I think it's always good to sort of face our fears, but we want to do it in a way that's productive, that's peaceful. There is a peacefulness to this kind of picture here that I feel like we want to maintain through the month of January. It's not to want to take, I don't want to say don't take action and don't challenge yourself, but don't challenge yourself so much that it causes insult to injury is kind of the feeling that I'm getting from these two cards together. I do like that there's a clarity to the Knight of Swords. The only thing is I don't feel that he's very grounded this month, guys. And so any action, any thoughts, any decisions that you make this month, be mindful of where we're making them from. Are we clear and concise? Have we looked at what it might look like a few steps down the road, right? And also, have we looked at, are we making decisions out of fear, right? Are we making these decisions or taking action or steps forward from a place of a relaxed nature or from a fearful nature, a worried nature? That would be also a question that could come up between these two cards for the month of January, or a focus that you might want to keep. Ultimately, the Knight of Swords does the right things for the right reasons, and that makes sense to me with Aquarian energy, in the sense that you guys are always sort of, the more of the air signs, you're the most kind of expansive, right? You love to do for the greater good of the larger whole, right? Or of the community, right? And so the focus might be on that. Well, where you're most comfortable is keeping the focus on that. But when I'm looking at this number 48, the focus needs to be maybe more on ourselves at this time. That might be uncomfortable for some of you too. And that might cause you this idea of wanting to sort of move quickly, make decisions quickly or rapidly from a state of impatience, or come on, let's get to it. I sort of feel like there's a rushing energy with this Knight of Swords, right? There's this, I don't know, like not maybe seeing everything so clearly because we're too busy moving like quickly through it. For some of you, it may be in an effort to fix something really quick, i.e. your fears or your doubts or whatever, and force yourself through something that you may not be ready to go through. Or it could be some of you running from your fears and your doubts and your anxieties and worries. Whichever direction that takes place in your life, or how that shows up in your life, ultimately, I think for both sides, there is this growth that's here. I really see a beauty and a peace in this. So however we choose to handle this uh, issue, right? Ultimately, there's going to be something on the other side of it for us that's going to be beneficial, right? So I don't want to leave you guys with misgivings about the month of January. It could be a little bit challenging in different forms for different Aquarians, but I kind of feel like with the Knight of Swords, your hearts will be true, your intentions will be pure. You do have the wisdom to solve this if you're careful about the steps that you take or the decisions that you make in this month, and weigh them. Don't. My feeling is don't allow any sort of fear or worry or trepidation guide you or lead you. You want to lead the charge, so to speak, but be mindful of how you're leading it, right? All right, so let's look at the foundation card. This is a card from the past that sort of opened the door for everything to be the way that it is in your cards today, right? It also tells me a little bit about sort of the memory of this card can be holding everything in place. It can also be sort of what's driving everything in the now. So we have the Two of Swords. So this speaks to fear also to a certain degree. There's a fear about indecision around the Two of Swords. Twos are always about sort of bonding in relationships is how I see them. The Two of Swords usually is about indecision. But when I look at this and I look at this in the past place, we have this blindfolded cat kind of walking a tightrope between these two swords. And this is normally depicted with a woman with two swords crossing her with a blindfold on. There's been something that maybe Aquarius doesn't want to look at. Right? You're going to know what that is in your life. It's in the back of your mind. You're not a stupid person. The Knight of Swords indicates that, right? It indicates that you're an air sign, you're intellectual, you're smart, right? You're aware, you're in touch. There's been something that up until maybe months in the past or in the last, I don't know how long, you have maybe not been able to deal with it, not been able to make a decision around it, have chosen to avoid it altogether if need be. But there's also this sort of push or this understanding underneath or deep within you that you've known that this is going to come round. You've known that you're going to have to face this at some point. And I feel like whatever I'm speaking about to each and every one of you, you know exactly what this is, right? You can like pinpoint it in your mind. And the reason why I say that is that moon on the card speaks to the idea that your subconscious, your intuitive side, the voice within your head has told you all the way along, come on, Aquarius, get it together. You know you need to deal with this. And the thing is that in the effort of not dealing with it, it may have served its purpose or its time in the past. And that's why you walk the tightrope or you put on the blindfold is kind of the read that I'm getting here. But at this point, it's not necessarily time to do that anymore. It may be a time to take action. With that Knight of Swords in the center, it feels like that would be the answer. My only concern about the Knight of Swords being the center is make sure that you've weighed every option, you've looked at every decision clearly from all perspectives, which you probably will do so, but it's just a reminder because there can be a little bit of, thinking or acting before they think it through with the Knight of Swords. So I just want to call that out to Aquarius's attention. What I do like about this Two of Swords being in the foundation space is it tells me a couple of different things. One is be mindful if indecision or fear is pushing us right now. Again, we see that with this fear card, but also this being in the foundation space says whatever stuff we've struggled with in the past could be causing us to finally take action or pushing us to finally take action. And we don't want to be pushed so quickly that we make a wrong decision, or not that there's a wrong decision per se, but we don't want to be pushed in such a way that we're making a decision based out of fear or worry or self-doubt, right? The other thing I like about this Two of Swords being in the foundation position makes me feel as though whatever it is we have been avoiding, if we do choose to deal with it in January, we bring ourselves closer to our own understanding of who we are and what we're capable of. And that is a powerful thing. That is the verdant, like sort of green valley that we see here, the peace that's on the other side of walking through whatever this indecision is, whatever this challenge was, whatever it was we may have been avoiding. At this point in time, if we're willing to do the work and live with the ramifications, so to speak, we will get the reward. And I feel like that's the deepening of the understanding and the freedom that comes from the experience of going through the indecision of the Two of Swords. I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's go to the Spirit or Soul card up above you. This tells me a bit about what your spirit or soul is wanting you to work on and what it wants you to focus on during the month of January. So you guys have the Eight of Swords. Now, it's interesting to me that you have these sort of dark cards, the Eight of Wands, not Eight of Swords. I was looking at the Two of Swords, but I was noticing right out of the gate, do you see how these two cards look very similar? We both have a black and white cat. We both have them at night. We both have a moon in the background. There's a sort of similarity between these two cards. Now, Wands is also complementary energy to Swords energy, right? Wands, Swords being air, Wands being fire. Fire consumes air and air feeds fire. So it's kind of like this symbiotic relationship. So this to me feels very much in line with my Aquarians. So everything that I see here, right, as far as the first three cards out of the gate to me are in line and in working with you, even though it might feel like it's challenging or we're maybe having to face some things that we didn't want to deal with, right? With this Eight of Wands, to me, Eight of Wands is always about indicative of like quick movement, changes coming. Wands being the element of fire, also being the element of spirit, it's going to have desire and action is going to want to be taken. Certainly the Knight of Swords is also kind of like an action card, right? He certainly looks like it in that card, riding on that owl. He looks like he's ready to charge in there, get some shit done, so to speak. Stop maybe being in that indecision. And I think that that's also the push that we see in this card of the Eight of Wands coming from the spirit side, is that our spirit is speaking to us rather loud and clearly. Something needs to be done. It's time to face whatever it is we've not been wanting to look at. And I think that that also makes sense to me from the standpoint that we're now entering into a new year. And so anything that we need to address or take care of for 2021, January is the perfect and ideal time to sort of do that, to release ourselves from anything that's holding us back or creating indecision for us, so that we can move forward in a positive way, right? And so to me, the Eight of Wands is always sort of a positive movement card. It being in the spirit space and it also being Wands, which is the element of spirit, is also another alignment that looks beneficial to me and feels correct and right. Like it snaps right into place is kind of the vibe that I'm getting. So I feel like Aquarius might be setting themselves up for some transformative change in January. It might be slightly unpleasant at first, or we might think that it's unpleasant because we see this word fear here, right? But there, like I said, there's this beautiful, peaceful place that we arrive at the end of this by having done this work, trusted our spirit, moved forward, and acted from a place of sort of honor and ideally well thought out plans. So how do I want to say this? Just make sure you think these things through as you move through them. Ultimately, I do feel like you guys will be okay. That's my feeling. Even though this says here, I do feel like you guys will be fine. There's a gift to be had in here in the adversity. That's sort of the feeling even that I get in that Two of Swords. It's like as we challenge ourselves with stuff that we maybe have avoided or not made decisions around in the past, it will bring us closer to a better understanding of who we are and what we deserve and how we can get there, kind of thing. All right, so the next two cards are what I call the outside influences. These are around us, they're not of us. So what I mean by that is they can represent as people, sometimes events, sometimes things more vague, like energies or belief systems that we've adopted that don't necessarily belong to us. We just assume that it's what's right, right? So we just need to be aware of these things for the month of January. Okay, so we have the Judgment card. I believe this is Scorpio energy. I just want to double check that really quick. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure it's Scorpio. My head has been swimming lately. I feel like this eclipse and stuff has got me kind of a little bit on the wonk factor, to be honest. It is Scorpio energy. Okay. So Scorpio is all about sex, death, and transformation. Whoops. Judgment is major arcana. So this is a big kind of opportunity that's coming to you. I don't necessarily always feel like judgment. Judgment is usually to our benefit ultimately, but sometimes it can come at a cost, right? Judgment is sort of like this opportunity to have truth come out, but that truth ultimately serves us for our higher good, right? So if there's situations, rather unavoidable situations, and I say rather unavoidable because this is major arcana, so my feeling is that whatever comes up in the month of January, it's going to be big and in your face. But I feel like as it's big and in your face, it's there to serve you. It's there for you to sort of face any fears, face sort of any self-doubt, any sort of indecision, or wherever we've kind of hid out or not committed. This Judgment card is forcing us to commit, right? It's coming in and saying, nope, we're going to transform this. We're going to transmute it. We're going to change it. We're going to move forward in this Eight of Wands energy. And the universe wants to give you that opportunity through this Judgment card. Ultimately, things might come to light through the Judgment card that we maybe didn't know. This could be things about ourselves or about others, right? Sometimes they can be hard pills to swallow, but they ultimately serve a greater purpose, and they ultimately bring us to a state of freedom. They get us to, like, sometimes back on our path if we're feeling like we've been off of our path for a little while. And with that Two of Swords in the foundation, it speaks to this idea that maybe my Aquarians have felt a little bit detoured in the months leading up to now. But the sort of renewed kind of, I don't know if I'd call it fierceness, but there's an excitement with that Knight of Swords that I feel like Aquarius wants to move forward at this time. So in doing so, especially also too with that Eight of Wands up in the spirit space, that also speaks to the strong spiritual desire to want to move forward too. And the option is there for us, but we may have to face some things where the Judgment card is going to bring us the opportunities to move forward, but we may have to look at some things we otherwise didn't want to see up till this point. But I will say this, my distinct feeling as I'm looking at these cards and as I'm saying we didn't want to see it, I feel like Aquarius, you knew it was coming. I'm going to swear here. I'm going to be like, bitch, you knew this was coming. It's this feeling that I get in my body that Two of Swords down below speaks to this idea that Aquarius was like, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this right now. And I'm talking, this was, maybe a few months ago, right? I don't know what the specificity is around the situation. Each one of you, it may be a different type of situation, but you knew, like back in that moment, I'm going to just not deal with this right now. I'm going to back burner this. You knew it would come back round. Well, now it's come back round through this Judgment card. So let's deal with it. It's kind of the feeling that I get. And ultimately, I think as each one of you deals with your certain thing or whatever it may be, and you're going to have to, right? Because it's major arcana. It's not going to like just disappear this time. It's going to be ultimately for your own highest good. And I think that that's a good thing in the long run. All right, so let's look at the other outside influence. All right, so we've got another major arcana. This is the Moon card. So the Moon, oh man, you guys, interesting. Hold on one second. I believe Moon is Cancer. I know Cancer rules the Moon in astrology, but I think I've heard different thoughts. Moon is sometimes associated with Pisces too in tarot. And I thought that it's the Hanged Man and the High Priestess that's Pisces. So let me just double check Moon really quick and make sure so I don't give you guys wrong information. Come on, Moon. It is Cancer and Pisces. Okay. So to me, I associate the Moon with Cancer. The moon is sometimes depicted as a scary card in some people's the way that they look at things when they do tarot. I don't see it as a scary card. I see it as the more subtle, softer, subconscious side of things, right? But that doesn't scare me because I'm a Pisces. I'm like a triple Pisces as far as I have Pisces in a lot of different planets. But with the moon, to me, the scary part, or where people interpret it as scary, is it's not always going to be as clear. The information could be murky. The information could come in drips and drabs versus very clear, full on. With this judgment card, I feel like there could be some things that are going to smack us in. No, I don't mean smack us in the face, but they're going to be very obvious and come clean, come clear. Awarenesses could come to the forefront in this month through the judgment card. The moon also leaves this area for sort of, how do I want to say this? Like, self-understanding through working through kind of maybe confusing situations or situations that aren't very clear. It could be information that we have that isn't necessarily working for us, or telling us the full and whole truth, giving us all of the facts. And I kind of feel like that's also judgment too, where when we get the facts, there could be, the moon sort of could not dilute the facts, but sort of present challenges for us through not being able to feel as though we can see completely clearly, right? Or navigate situations completely clearly. But ultimately, the moon has a gift within it, which is that idea of attaching or connecting to our more subconscious self, our more deeper self. We see that moon reflected in that Eight of Wands up above in the spirit space in this reading, right? That matches the moon that's coming from the outside environment towards us. So whatever's coming at us from our environment is going to connect us, hopefully, ideally, to what is intrinsically within us, right? That voice within us. We need to sort of face the fears, face the anxieties, face the things we've been avoiding, and trust our own internal dialogue, trust our own decisions, trust our own ability to sort of move forward in a way that's going to be productive. Ultimately, with the judgment and the moon on either side of us, it's like the universe, although it may be challenging a little bit in January, it's trying to show us something. It's trying to change us. It's trying to bring us to this state of, through addressing our fears, through looking at the things that don't necessarily always make sense to us, through navigating the sort of lesser traveled path for us, we actually end up leading ourselves to something that will be more beautiful, more self-realized, more aware, probably by February and throughout the rest of this year. Does that make sense, Aquarius? So my feeling is don't be fearful of the unknown. Challenge yourself enough to move through it. Your spirit, or your own higher self, your own, which we need to remember that is a part of who we are. If we turn towards that part of ourselves and trust in that and have communication and dialogue with that self, that part of ourselves, we are able to move forward and through some of these situations that we've been maybe putting off or avoiding. And I think that in doing that, although it may be challenging or seem scary at first, we'll find that we're able to navigate it. We're going to learn a lot, and we're going to gain something out of it, like a freedom or an understanding of who we are, an awareness that's going to serve us. Okay. Now, the next card is what I call the potential outcomes. And what I mean by this is that this is where the month may end for the majority of you, how the month will end out. But it's not set in stone. So if this is a negative card, we can use this as a warning right now to make choices and changes through free will to affect this outcome. But if this card is something good, we can take heart in the fact that we're naturally sort of heading towards it. And we just need to be aware of what's been said here and kind of incorporate this stuff in, and we'll naturally head towards this outcome. So I love this. We have the King of Cups. So Cups is not necessarily natural to the Aquarians, right? But it's water element. which is not a bad thing. And Aquarians are the water bearers, and the King of Cups is sort of that. Cups is the element of water and the emotions, right? And he's usually sort of like optimistic, loving, kind, feeling sort of whole, in charge, feeling in control. Kings are about the element of swords, right? Which is also Aquarian air energy, right? But cups would be about the emotions. So to me, it feels like our mind and our hearts will be in alignment again. I also love that in this particular card, we have a lot of, let me just see this really quick. We have these black and white cats happening here, right? In the Eight of Wands and in the Two of Swords. And to me, just from an idea of light and dark, good and bad, black and white, right? And this idea of maybe facing some fears that we have or some challenges that are going on with us for the month of January. By the end of the month, the whiteness of this cat makes me feel like we get to that state of pure knowledge. We get to that state of pure awareness. That state is based in a place of emotional, like, well-being, feeling good, feeling in control. This boat also makes me think, this pirate ship in the background makes me think about this fast travel of this Eight of Wands up above in the spirit space, which says to me that whatever sort of like subconscious or spiritual urgings that we're listening to and hopefully acting from, if we're listening to it and we're acting from it, it brings us to this state of the King of Cups, right? It brings us to this place of feeling loving towards not only ourselves, but also able to share that love with others, to bring that out into the world. And we get to move into February in this place of feeling very emotionally, well off and mentally well off. Right. And the boat also speaks to the fact that the journey doesn't end here for you guys. Right. It feels like we get to move now into February feeling much more content than we might feel walking into January, if that makes sense. Right. And so I like that we're empowered with the King card. Kings are always at the top of their game. I've heard that the King of Cups is also referred to as sort of high vibrational love. And I love that sort of terminology for this card because it does represent that. He's sort of a sweet, emotionally sort of in touch ruler that wants to not only be kind to himself, but to everybody around him. He rules more with like sort of the emotions and the well-being, those sort of well-being kind of feelings that come along with it, versus being, hard on oneself or worried or fearful. He's open, he's vulnerable, but he's not, it's like, how do I want to say this? It's almost like he chooses to be vulnerable because he knows he can protect himself. He understands that vulnerability is not a weakness, that emotional vulnerability is actually a strength and an awareness that empowers him. And I feel like that's what this green forest is about on the other side of this doorway, or this fear that we might need to work through in the month of January. That is the gift that like lies behind the Judgment card in the moon, is the ability to sit in this place of emotional contentment and mental like sort of achievement, where we understand that the things that we avoided for whatever reasons we did in the past, in facing them or addressing them and no longer running from them, we've actually arrived in a place where we feel quite accomplished, well off. We understand, like how and when and where to appreciate ourselves. That's kind of the vibe that I get from this King of Cups. So I love that as your month ending, guys. You should feel emotionally content and really keyed in and be ready to take on the rest of the year and move into February with some new perspectives. So I hope this makes sense for you guys. If it does, and you have questions, or if it doesn't make sense and you have questions, you can certainly leave me a comment on the YouTube page, and I will try and answer them. Again, it's broad spectrum. So like I said, take what you need and leave the rest. If you enjoyed this reading, please hit the thumbs up button, share it out to other Aquarians that could use it or groups that might need it. Please feel free, if you're watching on Facebook, to go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe there for the daily forecast. And if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to go over and like my Facebook business page. I'm always available for private readings. If you're interested in getting one of those, you can send me any questions to the Facebook business page. And that is your January of 2021 Aquarian reading. So I would say this: prepare yourself to be transformed, Aquarius, because it looks like it's happening in January. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys in a little bit for the other air signs. Hopefully I'll get them all done today, which will be, the next one will be Gemini, and then we will do Libra. All right, have a great day, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.